All righty, welcome to the Chamber Talk Show. Today we're talking adolescent mental health. Got a great show in store for you. Stay tuned. And happy Sunday to you, doctors. Happy Sunday to you. I am Dr. Tamika Manning alongside Dr. April Givens, and we have a guest on this afternoon. Her name is Dr. Akila Henry. You'll learn more about her. But today we decided to get together to talk more about what we're seeing more and more of. And today is adolescent mental health. All right, let's
Yes.
dive right in. Mental health is huge now. After
Mhm.
Corona, we saw a lot of changes. You being
Yes.
a family physician, you see it a lot and you say it's a serious topic. Let's talk about that.
Sure. First of all, ladies, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of the Chamber Talk Show. This is my first time. I'm a Chamber Talk Show virgin, so thank you so much. And yeah, let's just get right into it. I am a family practitioner here in Georgia, and I've been in practice now for 19 years. I don't know where 19 years went. It'll actually be 20 years in January. So in 2023, I can't believe I will have been in practice for 20 years.
Amazing.
Yes. So although most of my practice is adults, I would say about 20% of my practice is pediatrics, and primarily those are teenagers. And what I've noticed over the years is because mental health has become more a part of the national conversation and there's more awareness around it, I am seeing more teenagers coming in either on their own or with their parents primarily to address mental health concerns. Now, I break down mental health into three parts: the mental aspect, which is how our young people think, the emotional aspect, which is how they feel, and the behavioral aspect, which is how they act. And one of the things that I've noticed, particularly in the past couple of years, is an increase in mental health issues for our young people. And I focus a lot on teenage girls. That's my sweet spot, like that 12 to 17-year-old age group. Now, I have some stats for you. According to the CDC, overall, children suffer from depression at a rate of about 4.4%. And that translates until about 3 million children. Now, my sweet spot, like I said, is that 12 to 17-year-old age group. And with depression, that translates to about 6% of that 4.4%. And then with anxiety, it's 9.4% overall, which is about 6 million young people. And then for the teenagers, 10.5%. Another thing that we noticed since the pandemic that's been in the pediatric literature, there has been a 50% increase in emergency room visits due to attempted suicides among teenage girls. So again, I want to repeat that: 50, not 15, 50% in suicide attempts with our young people. And so what that tells me is that, in particular, once the country shut down and we went to the digital learning, that had a significant impact on the emotional and mental health of our teenage girls. I think the connections that they make at school, and likely also just the structure that's provided in the normal environment at school, really makes a difference. And they needed that. And when they didn't have it, they just declined terribly. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I definitely concur. 17 years in the educational industry, and I have never seen the differences in the students like I've seen before. After pandemic, it was serious. It was a lot. And I know Dr. April can speak to an increase in clients in her office to talk more about,
Yeah.
these issues. We talk about the negative behaviors as well that result in a lot of additional mental health issues because we have students and we also have drug use
Mhm.
increased drug use as well. Let's speak to that real quick. I do want Dr. April to jump in
Mhm.
really quick and kind of talk about her increase and her rise in the number of patients or clients that she has seen as well. And then we'll talk more about those negative behaviors.
Mhm. Well, in aspects to the teens, the teens have, it's been a plethora of people altogether just have increased in coming to therapy since COVID, since the pandemic. But teens in particular have been having specific issues dealing with social anxiety. So
Mhm.
that's something that, I wanted to ask you about, Dr. Henry. How have your practice, been impacted with the anxiety piece more so? And anxiety and depression kind of go hand in hand, but more
Right.
people are coming in for the anxiety issues, for the social anxiety, and that's something that we've been dealing with.
I will say in my practice, although I've seen an increase in teenagers coming in to address these issues, with the girls more so, they will seek care more so than the boys will. And I do see a little bit of a difference between the two. With the girls, the anxiety is related to pressure to perform well in school,
Mhm.
also pressure to fit in, obviously, with their peer group, which I think is something that teenagers across the board experience.
Right.
But as I just mentioned, with the increase in suicide attempts, when they were disconnected from those friendships or from their social groups and social connections that they had at school, then it made them feel so completely isolated. And so there's anxiety around not being connected to their peer group. Also, of course, with girls, there is anxiety around their personal self-image,
Right.
how they look, and we'll get into the social media aspect of that and how that plays a role and how young ladies view themselves, and that can contribute to an increase in anxiety and depression symptoms.
Mhm.
With the boys, believe it or not, it's not so much about their performance in school. They seem to be a little less concerned about that and more so the social aspect. Being seen as uh, cool,
Yeah.
attractive to girls, fitting in. They don't want to be a nerd and viewed as swaggerless and whack or uncool, right? And then another big thing is their physical appearance. I've had young men come in; they are obsessed with their height.
Mhm.
Am I going to get taller? Being very insecure about how tall they are. Sometimes their weight, but I think boys understand that working out, exercise,
Right.
they can manage their weight, but a lot of obsession about how tall they're going to be. And I know that's associated with being attractive to the opposite
Mhm.
sex.
Wow, I love that you made that parallel because it is huge. I mean, the
Mhm.
popular guys get the girls in
Yeah.
school and they get most of the attention. And of course, people are naturally drawn to people who look a certain way. And that's another thing that we can talk about as well before the show is over as well. But let's talk about some additional factors. We're talking about things like broken families. That's huge. I see a lot of that every day. I'm working in inner city Dallas.
Yes, I think we're all aware of the statistics that I think about 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Mhm.
And so, of course, when children are involved, they're affected by this. It's not just the parents' marriage that is disrupted, it's also the stability that the children were used to that's disrupted as a result of a divorce. And I'll talk a little bit about my own personal experience and then kind of compare that to what I see. My parents split up when I was in middle school. Now, fortunately for me, I think my parents did a great job of handling their divorce. They actually sat my sister and I down and they talked to us in an age appropriate fashion to explain, listen, mom and dad can't get along anymore. We're going to get a divorce. And what that means is daddy won't be living here, but we still love you. It's not your fault. Nothing's going to change except dad won't be living here. And they opened it up for us to ask questions. And there was never a custody issue.
Mhm.
My The way things were arranged with my parents is that my sister and I could see dad every other weekend. But my mom even said to us, look, girls, your dad and I had our problems, but he's a wonderful father. He loves you. The court says you can see him every other weekend. You girls can see your daddy anytime you want. And my dad bought a house that was literally a 3-minute car drive from where we grew up. So he was not going to be far away from us. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that I see commonly in my practice is we don't necessarily have that level of maturity on the part of the parents. And there may be some custody issues.
Mhm.
So, of course, children do feel some anxiety and perhaps depression about feeling as though they have to choose.
Right.
Or, unfortunately, if it's a situation where the father is the quote unquote deadbeat, then that's a wound that's created emotionally in the child, feeling as though, why doesn't dad want me? You know? And there are a number of different ways the child may respond. With many girls, of course, it's inward, right?
Right.
Self harm, thinking lowly about themselves, and that may manifest in inappropriate sexual behavior, trying to fill that void later. With boys, sometimes it's blaming the mother. Well, if mom had been this way or that way, dad would not have left. And of course, it can manifest sometimes in more aggressive behaviors, acting out at school, grades going down, and again, being disrespectful or aggressive with female authority figures.
I see it a lot. I see it.
Mhm.
I'm an assistant principal. Dr. April, go ahead and dive right in because let's talk about some practical strategies. Though you're seeing it on one end as a
Right.
physician, you're seeing it in your office. I see it there. It manifests in so many different ways, and there's so many things that we can help these students understand, or kids or adolescents understand that they can make it through those rough moments. They just have to be vested in the process. Let's talk a little bit about that, Dr. A.
Well, I think what I love about what you said, Dr. Henry, was that the your mom was able to sit you both down and say that it's not your fault. I think that's huge. That's important to be able to let kids know that whatever happens in the relationship is not your fault. Because, you can have a partner who can be a great father, a great mother, but they're not good for each other in the relationship. And so that's always a good thing to be able to, let kids understand. And especially teens, they know more than what we give them credit for. So being
Right.
able to have these conversations with them, and in therapy, having these kind of real conversations and asking them how they feel. I mean, it shocks me sometimes some of the things that the kids come and tell me from as early as 11 and 12-year olds will have this conversation about why they think their mom has messed up, if she's dating someone currently, why they feel like mom can do better, that she needs to just leave whoever she's with, she's settling. And it's just a shock. I'm like, do your parent really know how you feel? But they're scared to tell their parent this stuff, but
Right.
they'll say it in therapy. And it's like, wow, if you only knew what your child see you're doing, you would
Mhm.
actually stop.
I
So
love
yeah.
that. I love it. But and then there are so many things too that there are things that we can give them, like journaling, like talking
Mhm.
to someone. Therapy, of course, is great, but there are also so many other things that we can come together as a community to assist the kids. I know for us in the schools, of course, we do have a school psychologist on hand that some students will come to us and just say, "Hey, I need to go see her today. I really need to talk to someone and I want to be able to confide in them." So I think one thing that we can do, of course, is lend an ear to
Mhm.
listen to
Right.
them when they're going through these things.
Yeah. And
I'd
therapy.
like to, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just saying that therapy, is important to be able to, refer them to therapy. It's tons of strategies and tools that we can help them, with.
Well, I'm a huge proponent of therapy. And I kind of break down my treatment plan into what I call the holistic part and then the traditional medicine part. So I start off by telling our young people, okay, let's do a check in every day, like a mental health check in. At the end of your day, how are you feeling? Right? Are you feeling in a pretty good mood? Are you down? And if so, why? And just being very intentional about that. The second thing is unplugging. That means unplugging from social media, unplugging from the devices. They need a break. from that, because that definitely has an effect on their emotional health. And then third, I call it intentional self-love. I actually did a Let's Talk Teens on my Instagram show called Intentional Self-Love,
Mhm.
because Iyanla Van Zant actually has a quote that says, comparing yourself to others is an act of self-violence.
Mm.
And our young people, when they look at social media, they're thinking to themselves, oh, I want to look like this celebrity, or I want to be like this person. And Dr. April, I think I told you this. I had a patient several years ago who works in the magazine industry. And she said, Dr. Henry, God doesn't make all these beautiful people. I do. And she was talking about the models on the covers of the magazines that she worked for, how they have stretch marks and surgical scars and acne, and they're heavier than they look. And she uses her computer programs to make them look perfect. And
I
Right.
so
love
our young
it.
ladies are looking at that and thinking, oh, I have this mark, or I'm too heavy. And comparing themselves to these people, it's like a form of self-harm.
Right.
So I say be intentional about loving yourself, looking yourself in the mirror and saying, self, I love you. Now, beyond that, once we get to the point where maybe symptoms are really severe and or persistent, then the next step, make an appointment with me or with one of you, right?
Right.
And then my first step is always therapy, always therapy. And then as a last resort, if necessary, prescription medication. And the reason I'm reluctant to prescribe medication is, of course, for the potential side effects, because we're talking about prescriptions that affect your brain.
Mhm.
And for our teenagers, their minds and their bodies are still growing.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great point because I'm the same way. Medication management is always the last resort because there's so many other things that you can do. And I'm a strong proponent of supplements. And a lot of kids should be taking vitamins and they don't. And
Mhm.
the world that we live in is a lot of people don't believe in the power of supplements and that they actually work. Well, you mean to tell me all I need to take is some magnesium and that'll help me? That's bull. I don't believe that until they actually take it and they realize, well, dang, just
I
the
feel more calm. Yes.
yeah, deal with this. So don't knock it. It works. These are some things that, you can do if especially if you're not eating the correct diet. And none of us are eating the correct diet. So whoever says they are, it's a lie. You're eating what you you're eating, you may eat healthy and everything like that, but you're not getting the appropriate nutrients that you need a lot of times on an everyday basis because we're running, we're busy. So that's where supplementation comes in. It's important to have that and be able to take those vitamins to make up for what you're missing.
I
Right. And then
absolutely.
exercise and sleep.
Right.
That's a big one. When I
Yes.
have teenagers come in for their back to school physicals and sports physicals, I
Mhm.
always ask about their diet, if they have any food allergies or foods that they can't eat. But I also ask about their appetite, how often they have fast food, and then I ask them about their sleep. And it is amazing to me how many kids, teenagers, are not getting adequate sleep.
Right.
And when they tell me how late they're staying up versus what time they wake up for school in the morning, my mom and dad didn't allow that when I was coming up. I had a bedtime
Hmm.
and they're up to 11, midnight, sometimes after. And I'm like, why are you up that late? This is why you're tired. This is why you're not feeling good, in addition to eating fast food. Yeah.
Absolutely. Standards and boundaries, big time there, because I see it every day. I see hot chips all throughout the day. I see hot Cheetos throughout the day. And I'm saying, are you
Right.
eating lunch? No, I don't like the food in there. So there we go. This goes back to that parenting where we're pushing these
Hmm.
these kids to understand the importance of eating better, eating better for their health. Vegetables, a lot of them don't like vegetables,
Right.
so on and so forth. So they do need supplements. I agree with Dr. April in saying that they need so much because, again, they are sleep deprived and they're not as busy as we were growing up when we were outside playing
Right.
and drinking water from the water hose. Speak to that.
Well, and this brings up another piece of why it's so important to bring the parents in. They have to be engaged
Hmm.
around their teenagers' overall health, particularly their mental health, because you're absolutely right. I grew up with one of those old school Black mothers and grandmothers. And so mom made our lunch for the most part. We rarely ate the school cafeteria food. And we like mom's home cooked stuff from home. And so, yes, we had vegetables and meats. My mom to this day has a fruit basket with fresh fruit, apples, oranges, bananas, plums, whatever. And we ate that. We had that in our lunchbox, right? And like you said, we drank plenty of water. That's another one. I have kids saying, "Oh, Dr. Henry, I don't like water." And I'm like, well, get over it because you need water, you know,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
You need water. You need water. Let's talk teens. Go ahead, Dr. A.
No, I mean, I know me and you talked about this, Dr. Tamika, but you have to have parents that are enforcing these things too. You can't just let your teen do whatever they want to do. That's important because you do have so many parents. I've seen them. I've had them in therapy with their kids to where it's like, I don't even go in their room. Their room is so messy. Or what I'm like, this is your house. How you not
Correct.
in their room? Like, if they're not cleaning up, you can go in there and go behind them and clean up certain things. Like, no, that's taboo. They won't do that. It's certain people that just won't, check their kids. They still require structure and discipline. So that's important for you to be able to be the parent to provide that.
Yes, I
Worship.
look at when we talk about standards and boundaries, I look at standards as the set of expectations and then boundaries as the enforcement of the standards.
Mm, I love that. I love that. So as we move to a close, let's talk quickly. I know you host Let's Talk Teens, and you also have a book out. So let's talk about that.
Yes, this is it. Nia and the Numbers Game, A Teenager's Guide to Education, Relationships, and Sex. So I wrote this book in response to a number of young ladies and their mothers who came into my office over the years. What I noticed sometimes when a young lady had lost her virginity, mom finds out about it, brings her into me to get tested for pregnancy and STDs, there was all of this tension in the room. The young lady's somewhat embarrassed, the mother's all angry. And when I did some follow up questioning, what I realized, mom really hadn't had a mother daughter talk around the nature of men and sexuality. And so the young lady really wasn't prepared, other than being told, oh, it's a sin, wait till you're married,
Mhm.
which just isn't realistic. That's not enough information. And so I wrote this book to address that. I talk about social media, I talk about the menstrual cycle, I talk about preparation for college. And the title character, Nia, I follow her from middle school all the way through high school, college, and medical school until she grows up and has a family of her own and just deals with the typical things that a young lady will deal with over the course of her life. So that's why I did it. And I'm so proud of the fact a lot of people have said to me, oh my gosh, Dr. Keela, I really wish there had been a book like this when I was growing up.
Yes,
It's
a great
good.
guide. I know. Well, congratulations to you
Thank
on the
you.
book as well as Let's Talk Teens. Hopefully, we'll be seeing you out there with that platform as we
Mhm.
move to a close. We definitely want Dr. April to close with a positive affirmation in regards to our kids and adolescents and things that they're dealing with, because, of course, mental health was highlighted in the midst of and definitely after the pandemic. So we definitely want to close on a positive note in regards to
Okay, so I had to
Right.
put it up. So the affirmation for today is I am capable of closing old doors and opening new ones.
and opening.
I'm capable of closing old doors and opening new ones.
I
Yes.
Love
love
it.
it. Love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Keela, for taking
Yes,
time
thank
out on
you.
this Sunday to come out and talk to us about a subject that is massive at this moment. So, all right. So stay tuned. We'll have more shows with you in the future.
Yay.
Ladies, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
All right. You're welcome. And you guys, thank you for joining us as well. And of course, we'll see you soon. We have a new show coming out and we'll have it on our YouTube channel. So go out there and subscribe to the channel so you can watch the new show that'll be out this week. Thank you guys.
Will do.
All righty. Have a great one, everybody.
Bye.